Hello, hello from the underground. Uh, Give me a second to figure this out. Sorry. I don't know what's going on. Oh. That's okay. Okay, if we try, that's worse. That's worse. Okay, that's better. That's hello. That's kind of worse too.
Alright. From the under. Oh, right. Yeah? Hello? I think that.
But,
Check. Check. Hi. Alright. Hey. Hey, guys. Welcome to the underground. Hello from the underground. We have Balzac's Old Goriot going to be continuing from yesterday, last episode, on... Is this still right? I don't think this is right. Check. Now I don't know what's correct anymore. Alright, well, I think we're good. Yeah. Hope you're all well. Hope you've all got some coffee. Going back into Old Goriot. Prepared, for sure. This is my second pod today, so if we're a little bit anxious, it's the book. It's absolutely the book. Continuing. I will be worthy of it all, he exclaimed. Oh, my Eugene, that is nobly said. And Madame Nucingen kissed the student's forehead. He turned down Mademoiselle Taillefer and her millions for you, said Old Goriot. Yes, the little one was in love with you, and there she is now, with her brother dead, as rich as Croesus. Oh, why say anything about it? Exclaimed Rastignac. Eugene, said Delphine in his ear. Now I have one regret this evening. I will love you with all my heart, and forever. This is the happiest day I have known since you and your sister were married, exclaimed Goriot. Now God may send me as much suffering as he thinks good, provided it is not through you I suffer, and I shall only say, in February this year, in one short month, I had more happiness than other men can achieve in their whole lifetimes. Look at me, Fifine, he said to his daughter. She is very lovely, isn't she? Tell me, have you come across many women with her pretty color? And that little dimple of hers? Not many. Now, have you? And to think that it was I who made this darling woman. And now her happiness in you will make me 1,000 times lovelier. Will make her 1,000 times lovelier. Now I could go to hell gladly, my neighbor. If you need my share of heaven, I give it to you willingly. Come, let's eat, he added, scarcely knowing what he was saying. Everything is ours. Poor dear father. If you only knew, child, he said, rising and going to her, taking her head in his hands and setting a kiss among the plaits of hair. If you only knew how easily you can make me happy. Come and see me sometimes. I shall be up there above you. You won't have more than a step to go. Promise me that you will. Yes, dear father. Say it again. Yes, dear, kind father. That's enough. I should make you say it 100 times over if I listened to my own heart. Let's have dinner. They all behaved like children that evening, and Old Goriot was not the least giddy of the three. He lay at his daughter's feet and kissed them. He gazed long into her eyes. He rubbed his head against her dress. In short, no young lover could have been more foolish or more tender. You see, said Delphine to Eugene, when my father is with us, I must give him all my attention. It will be very tiresome sometimes. Eugene, who had already felt several twinges of jealousy, was not disposed to quarrel with this sentiment, although the remark contained the seed of all ingratitude. "And when will the rooms be finished?" he asked, looking around him. "How shall I have to leave? Or we shall all have to leave them this evening, I suppose." "Yes, but tomorrow you will come to dinner with me," she said slyly. "Tomorrow is the day we go to the Italiens." "I shall go to the pit," said Goriot. It was midnight. Madame de Nucingen's carriage was waiting for her. Old Goriot and the student walked back to the Maison Vauquer together, talking of Delphine as they went with an enthusiasm that grew more and more heated, and led to a curious rivalry between the two violent passions, as each man strove to outdo the other in expressions of love and admiration. Eugene could not help seeing that the father's love, which was completely unselfish, surpassed his own in its unchanging constancy and all-embracing generosity. To the father, his idol was always pure and lovely, and his adoration drew its strength from the whole past, as well as from his anticipation for the future. They found Madame Vauquer sitting by her stove, alone but for Sylvie and Christophe. The old landlady sat there like Marius among the ruins of Carthage, waiting for the two lodgers that will still remain to her, and bemoaning her troubles to Sylvie. Although the lamentations Lord Byron had put into Tasso's mouth are eloquent enough, they fall short of the heartfelt sincerity of Madame Vauquer's 𝐎𝐥𝐝. "Only 3 cups of coffee to make tomorrow morning, Sylvie. Oh, dear, dear, to think of my house being deserted like this. Isn't it heartbreaking? What is life without my boarders? Nothing at all. It's like taking the furniture out of a house. What is a house without its furniture? And what is a boarding house without its men? What wrong have I done against heaven to draw all these disasters down upon me? And beans and potatoes laid in for 20 persons? Police in my house. We'll have to live on potatoes now, and I shall send Christophe away." The Savoyard, who was fast asleep, woke up suddenly and said, "Madam, poor lady, he's just like a great big dog." "And in the slack season, too. Everyone is suited. Are boarders likely to drop from the sky? It will drive me out of my mind, and that old witch of a Machina carrying Poirier off with her. What did she do to that man to make him stick to her and follow her about like a pet poodle? Ah, bless us, yes," said Sylvie, shaking her head. "Those old maids, they're up to all the dodges. That poor Monsieur Vautrin, they made a convict out of," the widow went on. "It's no use, Sylvie. It's too much for me. I just can't swallow it. A lively man like that, who took brandy in his coffee at 15 francs a month and paid his money down on the nail. And wasn't he free with his money? Just," Christophe chimed in. "There must be some mistake," said Sylvie. No, it's quite true. He said so himself," replied Madame Vauquer. "To think that all these things should happen in my house, in a district where there's never a cat stirring. Upon my word, as an honest woman, I must be dreaming. For it's true, we've seen Louis XVI have his accident, we've seen the Emperor fall, we've seen him come back and fall again, but that's all in the natural order of things. These are things that can easily happen, you see, whereas middle-class boarding houses are firmly settled, unchanging things. They don't have upsets like that. You can do without a king, but you can't do without your dinner. And when a respectable woman, de confiance by birth, provides a good meal, with everything anyone could ask for, well then, nothing short of the end of the world. But there, that's just it. It is the end of the world. And just fancy, Mademoiselle Machina, who did you all these ill turns is to have 3,000 francs a year for it, so they say, cried Sylvie. Don't mention her name to me. She's a wicked woman, said Madame 𝐎𝐿𝐴. And to add insult to injury, she's going to that Bernard. But she's capable of anything. She must have committed all sorts of dreadful atrocities. She has killed and stolen in her day, I'll be bound. She ought to have gone to jail instead of that poor dear man. At this point, Eugene and Old Goriot rang the bell. Ah, here comes my two faithful ones, said the widow with a sigh. But the two faithful ones, who had only the haziest recollection of the boarding-house disasters, announced offhandedly to the landlady they were going to live in the Chaussée d'Antin. "Oh, Sylvie, that finishes me," said the widow. "You have been the death of me, gentlemen. That's stuck in my stomachical regions. I have a stroke there. This day has put 10 years on my age. It'll drive me crazy upon my soul. It will. Then what's to be done with the beans? Oh, well, if I'm going to be left alone here, you may pack your bag tomorrow, Christophe. Good night, gentlemen." "What on earth is the matter with her?" Eugene asked Sylvie. "Well, bless me! Here's all the boarders gone for one reason or another. That's given her a bit of turn and made her cranky. There, I hear her crying. It won't do her any harm to snivel a bit. That's the first time she's had a good cry since I've been with her." By the morning, Madame 𝐎𝐿𝐴 had talked herself round to putting a bold face on it, to use her own expression. She still appeared as afflicted as a woman must be who has lost all her lodgers, and whose life had been turned upside down, but she had all her wits about her, and it was plain what her real trouble was, the deep grief caused by an attack on her purse and a break in her routine. Certainly no farewell look on a departing lover casts at all the house that enshrines his mistress could have been more disconsolate than Madame 𝐎𝐿𝐴's glance at the empty places round her table. Eugene tried to cheer her by telling her that Balzac, whose term of residence in hospital was due to end in a few days, would probably take his room in the Maison 𝐎𝐿𝐴, and the museum official had often expressed a wish to have Madame 𝐎𝐿𝐴's room, and that in a very few days she would have her establishment full again. "Please heaven, you're right, my dear Monsieur Eugene. But ill luck is among us. There will be a death in the house before 10 days are out, you mark my words." And she threw a lugubrious look round the dining room. "Who will be taken, I wonder?" "I'm glad we're moving out of here," said Eugene quietly to Old Goriot. "Madam," said Sylvie, running in with consternation on her face, "there hasn't been sight nor sound of Miss Tigris for 3 days past." "Oh, well, if my cat is dead, if he has left us, The poor woman could not finish. She wrung her hands and buried her face against the back of her chair, quite overcome by this terrible foreboding. About noon, the time when postmen reached the Pantheon district, Eugene received a letter in a dainty envelope, sealed with the Boussons' arms. It contained an invitation addressed to Monsieur and Madame de Nucingen to the Viscountess's great ball, which all Paris had been looking forward to for a month. A little note for Eugene was enclosed with the card. It ran, "I thought, sir, that you would be pleased to undertake the task of conveying my sentiments to Madame de Nucingen, and so I send you the invitation you asked me for. I shall be delighted to make the acquaintance of Madame de Restaud's sister. Bring your charming friend to see me, but see to it that she does not capture the whole of your affection. A great deal of it is due to me in return for the affection I feel for you. Comtesse de Boussons." "Well," said Eugene to himself as he read the note again, "Madame de Boussons makes it pretty clear that she does not want the Baron de Nucingen." He went to call on Delphine at once, delighted at having procured a pleasure for her, for which he would no doubt receive his reward. Madame de Nucingen was in her bath. Rastignac waited in her boudoir with the impatience natural to an ardent young man in a hurry to take possession of a prize he has longed for in vain for a whole year. Young men do not feel such emotions as his twice in a lifetime. The first woman to whom a man is drawn, if she really is a woman, if she presents herself to him in the splendor of the setting required of a member of Parisian society, can never have a rival. Love in Paris has no resemblance to love elsewhere. In Paris, neither men nor women are taken in by the gay, shallow wrapping of conventional, disinterested devotion with which people cover their more or less selfish motives for the sake of decorum. In that world, it is not enough for a woman merely to satisfy the senses of the heart. She knows perfectly well that she has greater obligations to fulfill to satisfy the demands of the vanity that enters in 1,001 ways into every aspect of life. Above all, love is there essentially a boastful, insolent spendthrift, ostentatious charlatan. When there are not a woman in the court of Louis XIV who did not envy Mademoiselle de la Vallière, the reckless impetuosity of passion which drove the great monarch to forget that the ruffles at his wrists had cost 6,000 francs, and tear them for the sake of helping the Duc de Vermandois enter this world. What then can one expect for the rest of humanity? You must be young, rich, and titled, or better off still if you can. The more incense you bring to burn at the altar of your idol, the more favor will be shown you. Love is a religion, and its cult must needs cost more than those of all other gods. Love passes swiftly and is gone, but the path he has taken is marked, like a wanton urchin's, by a trail of devastation. Extravagant display in love is the poetry of which who live in city garrets. Without such riches, what would become of love there? If there are exceptions to these laws of the Parisian codes, rigorous as the laws of Draco the Athenian, they are found in solitary places, in choice spirits who have not allowed themselves to be led astray by the doctrines of society, who live remote beside some clear spring of living water, fleeting yet perennial, content in their green shades, happy to listen to the voice of the infinite which echoes for them in everything around them, and is heard in their own hearts. They patiently await their flight to heaven, and pity those of earth. But Rastignac, like most young men who have tasted grandeur early, meant to present himself in full armor in the lists of the world. He had been caught up into the feverish struggle, and perhaps he felt within himself the strength to conquer, but he did not know what means he should use or what his ultimate goal was. If a man has no pure and sacred love to fill his life, this thirst for power may take its place and become an entirely noble thing. A man has only to strip himself of selfish desires and seek not his own greatness, but the greatness of a whole nation. But the student had not yet reached that stage in his development when he could stand aside from the current of life and consider it with detachment. So far, he had not entirely shaken off the charm of the influences that surround the youth of a child brought up in the country, as if with the sweet-smelling freshness of green leaves. He had hesitated on the brink of the Parisian Rubicon. In spite of his impelling urge to plunge headlong into life, he cast some lingering glance over his shoulder at the scene of happiness, of the existence of the true noble man in his chateau. His last doubts had vanished, however, the evening before, at the sight of his new rooms. When he enjoyed the material advantages of wealth, as he had long enjoyed the distinction conferred by birth, he cast his provincial slough and slipped easily and effortlessly into a position which opened a fair prospect before him. And so, waiting for Dauphine, lounging in the pretty boudoir where he felt he had some right to be, he saw himself as so remote from the Rastignac who had come to Paris a year before that, scrutinizing that Rastignac through a kind of mental telescope, he wondered if he was indeed the same person as that young man. Therese's voice broke in upon his reflection and made him start. "Madame is in her room," she said. He found Dauphine leaning back in her low chair by the fire, looking tranquil and fresh. The picture she presented, reclining amid billows of muslin, irresistibly suggested one of those beautiful Indian trees on which the fruit appears before the flowers have shed their petals. "Well, here you are," she said in a voice that shook. "Guess what I've brought you," said Eugene, sitting down beside her and taking possession of her arm to raise her fingers to his lips. Madame de Nucingen made a gesture of delight as she read the invitation. She looked at Eugene with her eyes glistening with tears, then threw her arms around his neck and drew him into her in a transport of gratified vanity. "And it's you, darling," she said in his ears. "But Therese is in my dressing room, so we must be circumspect. You I owe this happiness to. Yes, I may call it happiness. For when you get it for me, it is surely something more than a triumph for my vanity. No one was willing to introduce me into that social sect. And now you will think me as petty, frivolous and giddy as any woman in Paris. But remember, my dear, that I am going to give up everything for you. And if I long to be admired by the Faubourg Saint-Germain more ardently than ever before, it is because I shall meet you there." "Don't you think," said Eugene, "that Madame de Basson tells us very plainly that she is not expecting to see the Baron de Nucingen at her ball?" "Yes, indeed," said the Baroness, returning the letter to Eugene. "Those words have a talent for insolence. Those women have a talent for insolence. But no matter. I shall go. My sister is bound to be there. I know she is getting a beautiful dress made. Eugene," she went on, lowering her voice, "she's going to the ball to avoid giving people grounds for talking about her. They suspect her of appalling things. You don't know the rumors that are flying. Nucingen came in to tell me only this morning that they were talking about her yesterday at the club, and they didn't mince matters. Oh, what, ye gods, does a woman's reputation and a family's honor rest? I felt myself struck at and wounded through my poor sister. According to what some people say, Monsieur de Trelles has put his name to bills amounting to 100,000 francs. They are nearly all overdue, and he is going to be sued for the money. To meet this desperate situation, my sister is said to have gone and sold her diamonds to a Jew, those beautiful diamonds that you may have seen her wearing, that belonged to Monsieur de Restaud's mother. For these last 2 days it has been on everyone's tongue. Nothing else has been talked about but that. I fancy, then, that Anastasie is having a gold lamb dress made for herself because she wants to draw all eyes at Madame de Basson's ball when she appears in all her glory, wearing her diamonds. But I don't want to be cast into the shade by her. She has always tried to outshine me. She has never shown any kindness to me, and I did so much for her. I always had money for her when she had none. But let's forget about other people. Today, I mean to be completely happy." Rastignac was still with Madame de Nucingen at 1 o'clock in the morning. As they said goodbye with lovers' extravagance, A lover's sweet goodbye, full of promise of joys to come, she said, looking at him sadly. I'm so uneasy, so superstitious. Call my presentiments what you like. I'm quaking for fear that I shall have to pay for my happiness through some dreadful catastrophe. Silly child, said Eugene. Oh, I'm so glad this evening, she said, laughing. Eugene returned to the Maison Vauquer, completely certain that he would be living it the next day, and he gave himself up along the way to those enchanting dreams all young men indulge in when the taste of happiness still lingers on their lips. Ah, Old Goriot called out as Eugene passed his door. Well, replied Eugene, I'll tell you everything tomorrow. Everything from beginning to end, isn't that so? Cried the good old man. Go to bed. Our happy life begins tomorrow. Next day, Goriot and Rastignac were ready to leave the boarding house, and were only waiting for the good offices of a porter. About midday, however, the wheels of an approaching carriage woke the echoes of the Rue Neuve Sainte-Geneviève, and the vehicle stopped at the Maison Vauquer door. Madame de Nucingen alighted and asked if her father was still in the boarding house, and when Sylvie said that he was, she went hastily upstairs. Eugene was in his own room, although it so happened that his neighbor was not aware of it. At breakfast, he had asked Old Goriot to see to the removal of his luggage, saying that they would meet at 4 o'clock in the Rue des Artois. But while the good-natured old man was out fetching porters, Eugene, who had speedily paid his duty visit to the École des Droits to answer to his name at roll call, returned, unnoticed by anyone, to settle Madame Vauquer's bill. He did not wish to leave this task to Goriot, for the old man, in his fanatical affection, would probably have insisted on paying for him. The landlady, however, had gone out. Eugene went up to his room again to make sure that he had not forgotten anything, and he congratulated himself on having done this when he found the blank bill signed by Vautrin in a drawer on his table, where he had carelessly thrown it the day he had repaid the money. He was about to tear it up, as he had no fire, when he heard Delphine's voice, and, not wishing to make a noise, had stopped and listened, thinking that she could have no secrets from him. Then, from the very first words, he found the conversation between father and daughter so interesting that he could not interrupt it. Father, she said, heaven send I am not utterly ruined, that the thought of demanding an account of any money did not occur to you too late. Is it safe to talk? Yes, there's no one in the house, said old Goriot in a faltering voice. What's the matter? Asked Madame de Nucingen. You have just struck me a staggering blow, replied the old man. God forgive you, child. You do not know how much I love you, or you would not blurt out such news as that without any warning, especially if things are not desperate. What can have happened that is so urgent that you have come to look for me here about it? In a few minutes we should have all been together at the Rue des Artois. Oh, father, can you control your first impulse in a catastrophe? I'm at my wit's end. Your lawyer has brought me at light a little earlier a state of things that will no doubt become public property later on. We're going to need your long business experience, and I rushed to get hold of you as instinctively as a drowning man clutches a branch. When Monsieur Derville saw that Nucingen was throwing endless difficulties in his way, he threatened him with a lawsuit, and told him that it would not be hard to obtain a warrant from the president of the tribunal. 𝐎𝐥𝐝 came to me this morning to ask if I was anxious to ruin him and myself, too. I replied that I know nothing whatsoever about that. I had a fortune. I ought to be in possession of my fortune. That the whole business was in my lawyer's hands. I knew absolutely nothing about it, and it was impossible for me to discuss it with him. Isn't that what you told me to tell him? Yes. You were quite right. Well, then, Delphine went on, he told me how this affair stood. He has thrown all his capital and mine into ventures which are barely begun and require large sums for their development. If I force him to hand over my dowry, he will be obliged to go bankrupt. While if I only wait a year, he pledges his honor to give me a fortune twice or 3 times as great by an investment in building land, which in the end will make me mistress of a whole property. My dear father, he was sincere. He frightened me. He begged my pardon for his conduct. He gave me my liberty, set me free to act as I liked in my personal affairs if I would leave him entirely free to manage the financial business of my name. To prove his good faith, he said he would call in Monsieur Derville any time I pleased to make sure that the title deeds of the lands were properly drawn up in my name. In short, he threw himself upon my mercy, bound hand and foot. He wants the household arrangements to go on as before for 2 more years, and he begged me not to spend more money for my personal expenses than he sets aside for me. He made it clear that it is as much as he can do to keep up appearances. He has sent his opera dancers away. He will be obliged to practice the strictest economy as unobtrusively as possible if he is to hold on till his investments bear fruit without damaging his credit. I rated him. I queried everything he told me so as to drive him to distraction and find out more. He showed me his books, and in the end, he wept. I never saw a man in such a state. He lost his head completely and raved. He talked of killing himself. I felt sorry for him. And you really believe this, 𝐎𝐿𝐴? Cried Old Goriot. He is just playing upon you. I have come across Germans in business. They are nearly all honest, straightforward people. But when their show of frankness and good fellowship is bogus, they are the worst sharks and humbugs of all. Your husband is throwing dust in your eyes. He feels himself hard-pressed, and he shams dead. He's trying to place himself more firmly in the saddle under your name than he is under his own. He's going to take advantage of the situation and screen himself against his business risks. He's as cunning as he is treacherous. He's a bad lot, you know. No, I'm not going to lie down and go to the Père Lachaise and leave Micro stripped of every farthing. I still know a thing or two about business. He has, so he says, sunk his capital in various undertakings. Well, if that is so, his interests in them are represented by securities, receipts, agreements. Let him produce them, and come to some arrangement with you. We will choose the most promising speculations and take our chance in the turning out badly, and we will have the certificates transferred to your name, Delphine Goriot, and kept quite separate from the estates of the Baron de 𝐎𝐿𝐴. Does the man take us for idiots? Does he imagine that I could stand the idea of leaving you without a penny, without a crust of bread, for 2 days? I will not stand 1 day, nor 1 night, nor 2 hours. If this cock and bull story had any foundation of fact, I should not survive it. What? Work 40 years of my life, carry sacks on my back, lard the earth with my sweat, and pinch and save my whole life long for you, my darlings, who made all work easy for me and every burden light, only to see my fortune, my life, go up in smoke? If that were so, I should go raving mad and die. But all that's holiest in heaven and earth were going to drag this business into the light of day. We'll go through the books, find out what capital is invested, and look into the companies. I will not sleep. I will not rest or eat until I have made sure that your fortune is there and is complete. Thank God your money is settled on you. And you will have Maître Derville, an honest man, fortunately, as your lawyer. By God's daylight, you shall keep your nice little million, your 50,000 francs a year, to the end of your days, or I'll know the reason why. Never fear. I would appear to the chambers of the law courts let us down. The knowledge that you had a mind at ease. The knowledge that you had a mind at ease and happy, as far as money goes, used to lighten all my troubles and soothe my unhappiness. Money is life itself. It's the mainspring of everything. What yarn is that great dolt of an Alsatian spinning us? Delphine, don't concede a quarter of your farthing to that great brute who chained you up and made you miserable. If he needs you, we shall have a whip hand of him, and we will make him behave himself. God, my head's on fire. There's a red-hot torture in my skull. My Delphine in the gutter. Oh, my Fifine, you. Ye stars in heaven. Where are my gloves? Come on, let's go. I'll go and see everything. Books, cash correspondences, everything straight away. I shall have no peace of mind until I've seen it all with my own eyes and satisfied myself that your fortune is secure. Oh, father dear, do be careful. Mind what you do. If you betray the slightest hint of a desire for vengeance, if you show yourself openly hostile, it will be all up for me. He knows you. He found it quite natural that, prompted by you, I should show some uneasiness about my money. But I swear to you, he holds it in his hands, and means to hold on to it. He is just the man to make off with the whole capital and leave us stranded, the scoundrel. He knows very well that I will not dishonor the name that I bear by taking legal procedures against him. He's in a strong position, and yet at the same time he needs me. I have looked into everything thoroughly. If we drive him to extremities, I am lost. Is the man nothing but a swindler, then? Well, yes, father, she said, throwing herself into a chair and bursting into tears. That's what he is. I wanted to keep it from you. I wanted to spare you the mortification of knowing you had married me to a man of that sort. His private morals are just as bad as his business ones. His conscience, soul, and body are all of a piece. It's dreadful. I hate and despise him. Yet after all that vile man has told me, I haven't a grain of respect for him left. A man capable of being involved in the shady dealings he has spoken of to me must be utterly unscrupulous, and it's because I read what's in his heart so plainly that I'm afraid. He, my own husband, bluntly proposed to me that I should be free, if you know what that means. If I would be a tool in his hands, and let him use my name to protect himself if things went wrong. But there are such things as laws, exclaimed Old Goriot. There's a place d'Agrève for that sort of son-in-law. I would guillotine him myself if there were no public executioners to do it for me. No, father, the law can't touch him. Listen to this. It's what he says in plain terms, stripped of his fancy phrases. Unless you let me carry my undertakings through, everything is lost. You will be completely ruined. You won't have a farthing left, for I can have no other accomplices in this business but you. Do you see? He still depends on me. He is confident that he can trust his wife. He knows that I will leave him his money and be content to have my own. I am forced to enter into a compact with him, a wicked, dishonest, crooked compact, if I don't want to be ruined. He buys my conscience, and pays for it by setting me free to do anything I choose to Eugene. I'll turn a blind eye to your misdeeds, provided you don't interfere with my crimes, and let me get on with the job of swindling poor people out of their money. Is that explicit enough? Do you know what he calls doing a good stroke of business? He buys undeveloped land in his own name, then has houses built on it, acting through men of straw. These men draw up the contracts for the buildings with all the contractors and pay them by long-dated bills. They hand over possessions of the houses to my husband for a small sum and slide out of their debt to the duped contractors by going bankrupt. It was plain to me that the name of the firm 𝐎𝐥𝐿 was used to dazzle the poor contractors. I noticed, too, that to prove the firm had paid enormous sums, in case proof should be needed, 𝐎𝐿 has sent bills for considerable amounts abroad to Amsterdam, London, Naples, and Vienna. How could we get hold of those bills? Eugene heard a dull thud on the floor next door, as if old Goriot had fallen on his knees. God, what have I done to you? My daughter at the mercy of that scoundrel. He will wring every penny from her as he pleases. Forgive me, child, cried the old man. Yes, if I'm in the depths of despair, it's perhaps partly your fault, said Delphine. We have so little sense when we get married. What do we know of the world, or business, or men, or life? Fathers ought to think for us. Dear father, I'm not blaming you at all. Forgive me for saying that. This is all my own fault. No, don't cry, Papa, she said, kissing her father's forehead. Don't you cry either, little Delphine. Show me your eyes and let me kiss the tears away. There, I'm going to put on my thinking cap and I'll find the loose end of this unraveling skein your husband has tangled for us. No, let me do it. I'll know how to manage him. He has some affection for me. Well and good. I'll use my influence over him to induce him to invest some of the money in landed property from me. Perhaps I could persuade him to buy back 𝐎𝐿𝐥𝐿 and Alsace in my name. He is fond of that place. All the same, you should come tomorrow and go through his books and look into the transactions. Monsieur Terville knows nothing about business. No, not tomorrow. I don't want to be upset. Madame de Poisson's ball is the day after, and I must take care of myself if I'm going to look serene and at my best, and do honor to my dear Eugene. Now, let's go and see what his room is like. At that moment, a carriage drew up in the Rue Neuve Sainte-Geneviève, and Madame de Restaud's voice was heard outside. She was on her way upstairs, and she was saying to Sylvie, "Is my father in?" This interruption came in the nick of time for Eugene, whose only plan had been to throw himself on his bed and pretend to be asleep. "Oh, father." "Oh, father, have you heard about Anastasie?" said Delphine when she recognized her sister's voice. "It seems that very queer things are happening in her household, too." "What next?" said Goriot. "This will be the death of me. My poor head will not stand another calamity like this." "Good morning, father," said the Countess as she came in. "Oh, you here, Delphine?" Madame de Restaud seemed rather taken back at finding her sister there. "Good morning, Nasi," said the Baroness. "Do you really find it strange that I should be with my father? I see him every day." "Since when?" "If you came here yourself, you would know." "Don't tease, Delphine," said the Countess in a woeful voice. "I am very unhappy. I am ruined, my poor father. Oh, completely done for this time." "What is it, Nasi?" cried Goriot. "Tell us all about it, child. How pale she is. Come, Delphine, do something to help her. Be kind and affectionate to her, and I will love you even more, if that's possible." Poor Nasi. said Madame the 𝐎𝐿𝐵𝐿, gently pushing her sister into a chair. Tell us everything. We are the two persons in the world who will always love you well enough to forgive you anything. You know, family affection is the most loyal. She gave her smelling salts to inhale, and the Countess soon felt better. This will kill me, said Goriot. Come now, he went on, poking his peat fire. Come nearer, both of you. I'm cold. What is wrong, Nasi? Tell me quick. I'm dying of... Well, said the poor woman, my husband knows everything. Think of it, father. Do you remember that bill of Maxim's some time ago? Well, it wasn't the first. I had paid several before. About the beginning of January, Monsieur de Trelles seemed to be very depressed. He said nothing to me, but it is so easy to read the hearts of those you love. A trifle is enough. Then you feel things intuitively. And then he was more loving, more tender than I had ever known him. I felt happier in his affection every day. Poor Maxime! In his thoughts he was saying goodbye to me, so he has told me since. He had made up his mind to blow his brains out. In the end, I worried him so much, begged so hard. I knelt by his knees for 2 hours one day, and he told me that he owed 100,000 francs. Oh, Papa, 100,000 francs! I was out of my mind. You hadn't got so much money. I had swallowed up everything you had. No, said Goriot. I could have found so much money, short of going and stealing it, but I would have done that, Nasi. I would have done it yet. When he said this mournfully, expressing all the agony of a father's powerlessness to help his children in a voice that sounded hoarsely like the death rattle of a dying man, the two sisters fell silent, and there was a pause. What selfish heart could have remained unmoved at this cry of despair echoing hollowly like a stone flung into the abyss, revealing depths of suffering? I raised the money by selling what was not mine to sell, father, said the Countess, bursting into tears. Delphine was touched and wept too, resting her head on the sister's shoulder. It's all true, then, she said. Anastasie hung her head. Madame de 𝐎𝐿𝐵𝐿 put her arms around her waist and kissed her tenderly, and said, holding her against her heart, Here you will always be loved, and no one will ever judge you. My darlings, said Goriot feebly, why must it be disaster that brings you together? To save Maxime's life, to save all my own happiness, the Countess went on, cheered by these demonstrations of a warm and living affection. I went to that money-lender, you know, Monsieur 𝐎𝐥𝐝, a man created in hell with a heart nothing could ever soften, and I took him the family diamonds Monsieur de Rastaud thinks so much of. His and mine. I sold them all. Sold them! Do you understand? He was saved, but I am done for. Rastaud fortune. Rastaud found out everything. How did he find out? Who told him? Tell me, and I'll kill him, said Goriot. Yesterday he called me to his room, and when I went, Anastasie, he said, in such a voice. Oh, his tone was enough, I guessed it all. Where are your diamonds? In my room. No, he said, looking at me. There they are on my chest of drawers, and he showed me the jewel box which he had hidden under his handkerchief. You know where they come from, he said. I fell at his feet. I wept. I asked him what death he wished for me to die. You asked him that? Shouted Goriot. By God's sacred name, Whoever harms either of you, as long as I'm alive, may be sure that I will roast him over a slow fire. Yes, I will slash him into strips, like—" He stopped. The words died in his throat. "And then, dear, he asked me to do something harder than dying. May heaven preserve all women from hearing what I heard him say." "I will murder that man," said Goriot calmly. "But he had only one life, and he owes me 2. Well, go on. What then?" he added, looking at Anastasie. "Well," continued the Countess, after a pause he looked at me. "Anastasie," he said, "I will bury this in silence. We will not separate. There are the children. I will not kill Monsieur de Trelles. I might miss him in a duel, and to get rid of him in a different way might bring me into collusion with the law. If I killed him in your arms, it would bring disgrace upon those children. But if you are not to see your children perish, nor their father, nor me, you must submit to 2 conditions. Answer me this. Have I one child which is my own?" I said yes. "Which?" "Ernest, our eldest." "Very well," he said. "Now swear to obey me from this time forward on one point." I swore. "You will sign an agreement for the sale of your property when I ask you to do so." "No, no, do not sign," cried old Goriot. "Never sign that away. Monsieur de Restaud, you do not know how to set about making a wife happy. She looks for happiness when she is to be where it is to be found, and then you punish her for your own stupid inadequacy, do you? But I'm here. Stop. Not so fast. He will have to tackle me first. Set your mind at rest, Nasi. He is fond of his heir, is he? Good. Good. I will get hold of his son. By heaven, isn't he my grandson? I can surely go and see the brat. I will tuck him away somewhere in the country. I'll take care of him, don't worry. That monster will capitulate when I say to him, 'You must deal with me. If you want your son, give me my daughter back her property, and leave her free to do as she pleases.'" "Oh, father." "Yes, your father, Nasi. Your father first and foremost. That rascal of a great lord had better not ill-treat my daughters. Thunder and lightning, I don't know what fiery blood runs in my veins. I have tiger's blood in me. I could crush the bones of those 2 men. Oh, children, is that what your life is? The thought of it is death to me. And what will become of you when I am gone? Fathers ought to live as long as their children. Gee, how badly the world is arranged. And yet you have a son. If that, they tell us, is true, you should save us from suffering through your children. My darling, my darlings, to think that it should be sorrow that brings you to me. Your tears are all that let me know of you. Well, yes, you love me, I see that. Come and shed your tears here. My heart is big enough to hold all your troubles. Yet, even if my heart is broken, each piece will make a father's heart again. If only I could take all your troubles on me and suffer for you. When you were little, how happy you were." "We were happy then, as we have never been happy since," said Delphine. "Where are the days when we slid down the sacks in the great granary?" "Father, that's not all," Anastasie whispered to Goriot. The old man gave a violent start. "The diamonds did not fetch 100,000 francs, and Maxime is hard-pressed. We have only 12,000 francs still to pay. He has promised me that he will be sensible and not gamble anymore. His love is all I have left in the world, and I have paid too dearly for it to go on living if I lose him. I have sacrificed my fortune for him, my honor, peace of mind, children. Oh, do something to ensure that at least Maxime is not put in prison, not disgraced, that he can stay in a world where he is sure to make a position for himself. It's not only my happiness that is at stake now. We have children who would be left penniless. Everything will be lost if he is sent to Saint-Pélagie. I haven't got the money, Nazi. I've nothing left. Nothing left. Nothing. It is the end of the world. Oh, the world is tumbling into destruction, that's certain. Fly. Run away. Save yourself while there is time. I still have my silver buckles and half a dozen silver spoons and forks, the first I ever owned in my life. But I've nothing else except my annuity, 1,200 francs. What have you done with your securities? I sold them and kept just that trifle for my needs. I wanted 12,000 francs to furnish some rooms for Fifine. In your own house, Delphine, said Madame de Restaud to her sister. Oh, what does that matter? Goriot said. The 12,000 francs are spent. I can guess, said the Countess. Therefore, Monsieur de Rastignac. Delphine, my poor girl, mind what you are about. Take warning by my plight. Monsieur de Rastignac is incapable of ruining the woman he loves, my dear sister. Thank you, Delphine. In my present dreadful troubles, I expected better of you. But then you never did care for me. Oh, yes, she cares for you, Nassy, cried Goriot. She was telling me so not long ago. We were talking about you, and she maintained that you were beautiful, while she was only pretty. Pretty, repeated the Countess. She's as pretty as a cold, hard iceberg. Even if I were what you think me, said Delphine, reddening, how have you behaved towards me? You cast me off. You closed the door at every house I wanted to visit against me. You have never missed an opportunity of making me suffer. And when did I ever come, as you did, to screw our poor father's fortune out of him, 1,000 francs at a time, and reduce him to the plight he's in now? That's your work, my dear sister. I have come to see my father as often as I could. I did not turn him out of the house, and then come and lick his hand when I needed him. I did not even know that he had spent that 12,000 francs for me. I am careful and economical, and you know it. Moreover, I never asked Papa for the presents he has sometimes given me. I'm not a beggar. You were better off than I was. Monsieur de Marsay was rich, and you have some reason to know. You were always as sordid and mean as people who care for money are. Goodbye. I have neither sister nor— Hush, Nassy, cried Goriot. Only a sister like you could repeat what no one else believes any more. You're a horrid, unnatural creature, said Delphine. Children, hush, or I'll kill myself before your eyes. There, Nassy, I forgive you, Madame Nucingen said. You are unhappy, but I am kinder than you are. How could you say that to me, just when I felt ready to do anything to help you, even to make it up with my husband, which I wouldn't do for my own sake, nor for— But after all, it's just like all the other cruel things you have done to me in the past 9 years. Children, kiss and be friends, said their father. You are both angels. No, let me alone, screamed the Countess, shaking off the hand Goriot laid on her arm. She has far less pity for me than my husband. Anyone would imagine she was a pattern of all virtues. I would rather people think I owed money to Monsieur de Marsay than confess that Monsieur de Trellis cost me more than 200,000 francs, retorted Madame de Nucingen. Delphine, cried the Countess, taking a step toward her. I only tell you the truth in return for the lies about me. The Baroness said coldly, Delphine, you're a... She had no chance of finishing her sentence, for Goriot threw himself between the two sisters, laid one hand restrainingly on her arm, and covered her mouth with the other. Goodness, father, what on earth have you been handling this morning? She said. Well, yes, I shouldn't have touched you, said the poor father, wiping his hands on his trousers. I've been packing my things. I'm flitting, you know. I didn't know you were coming. He was happy at having drawn this reproach upon himself, and so diverted the current of his daughter's anger. Ah, he said as he sank into his seat, you children have broken my heart. This is the end. My head is burning as if it were on fire inside. Be kind now, and love one another. This is killing me. Delphine, Nasi, come. There is right and wrong on both sides. Look, Dedel, he went on, gazing at the Baroness with eyes full of tears. She needs 12,000 francs. Let us think where we can find them for her. Don't look at each other like that. He slid from his chair and dropped on his knees beside Delphine. Ask her to forgive you, just to please me, he whispered in her ear. She is more miserable than you. Don't you see? We might finish this tomorrow.